Good evening, everyone. My name is Kendra Pyle. My pronouns are she, her. I am the coordinator for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the College of Natural Science and also a graduate student in the Master's in Social Work program here. I'm really happy to have you joining us tonight for our Amplify Nat Sci celebrating Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Heritage Month. And this is our last Amplify Nat Sci series for this academic year. And I would like to welcome Cheryl Sisk, our Associate Dean for Faculty Development and Professor in the Neuroscience program, to give us our welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Kendra. Good evening, everyone. As Kendra said, I'm Cheryl Sisk. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Associate Dean for Faculty Development in the College of Natural Science. It is certainly my pleasure to welcome all of you to this Amplify Nat Sci event in celebration of Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Heritage Month. Tonight, we are honoring APITA voices and their contributions in STEM and recognizing that members of the APITA community have faced historical barriers to success in STEM careers. And so tonight, we'll be learning from a panel of NatSci, APITA alumni and faculty about their experiences and journeys as students and scientists. I do thank all of you for joining us this evening, and I, for one, am really looking forward to hearing the stories of our guest panelists, and I would like to thank them especially for being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Cheryl, for those remarks. And now we would like to read the MSU Provisional Land Acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Michigan State University occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the university resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indian nations, for historic Indigenous communities in Michigan, for Indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous sovereignty and will work to hold Michigan State University more accountable to the needs of American Indian and Indigenous peoples.
Thank you very much, Ariel. Next, I would like to welcome our moderators, Aran Iwata and Nick Carlier, for their introductions, and then they will be introducing our panelists.
Thank you, Kendra. So hi, everyone. My name is Aran Iwata. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a junior majoring in chemistry at MSU. I'm also the president of MSU Chemistry Club and an undergrad research assistant in Dr. Timothy Warren's lab. I'm from the countryside of Japan, and therefore there is a normalization that STEM fields are for men. However, moving to Belgium due to my father's job made me realize that women can also study science and pursue it as their career. My academic and career goals, which are to attend graduate school and become a researcher for an energy-related industry, are still hardly accepted by people in Japan, especially in the countryside. However, I'm grateful that I had an opportunity to change my perspective on women in STEM fields, which allowed me to find my passion in chemistry.
All right, my name is Nick Carlier. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm currently a Lyman Briggs sophomore pursuing a bachelor's degree in human biology. I also have a minor in bioethics at this time. I am currently an undergraduate learning assistant in Lyman Briggs teaching cellular and molecular biology. And I'm also motivated to utilize this experience in the future as a physician assistant to educate my future patients. I was specifically born in Seoul, South Korea. I moved to the United States when I was 6 months old, when I was adopted by a family all the way in Troy, Michigan in Oakland County, which is my current hometown. I have an appreciation for diversity and inclusiveness so they feel home and safe in the sciences, which is very important to me. I believe that diversity and inclusiveness in science enable students of color that may be underrepresented to know that they truly belong in the sciences. And if science is to make scientific advances, it must also make advances in diversity and inclusiveness as well.
Next, we would like to introduce our panelists. So firstly, we would like to welcome Nikita Bangu. Nikita Bangu, she, her, is a first medical student at Michigan State University College of Human Medicine, aspiring to pursue a career in family medicine, working with underserved and underinsured communities. Nikita graduated as a Jewish scholar with high honors from Michigan State University in May 2021, with a bachelor degree in neuroscience. She enjoyed her time at MSU tremendously and holds dearly the instructors and friends that she formed relationship with. Nikita is passionate about health equity and service to communities in ways that are unique to their needs.
Next up, I want to introduce Dr. Arjun Krishnan. He is an assistant professor at Michigan State University, and he leads a research group that is passionate about using algorithms and computing to turn big data into biomedical insights. The team consists of biologists, statisticians, mathematicians, physicists, engineers, and data scientists. The group is diverse, supportive, and collaborative with a strong culture of contributing to each other's professional and personal development. Research in the Krishnan Lab is supported by the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation. Before coming to Michigan State University, Arjun received his PhD in computational biology at Virginia Tech and conducted his postdoctoral research at Princeton University.
Lastly, we would like to welcome Casey Pham. Casey Pham, they, them, is a PhD candidate at University of Florida studying genetics, evolution, and biodiversity. Casey is interested in how interbreeding between trees can affect their ability to adapt to different environments. Before this, they did their undergraduate in biochemistry and master's in plant biology at Michigan State University. Alongside their research, they try to leverage art to more effectively communicate science and do service work towards building a better culture for minoritized students in academia. Ask Casey about applying to graduate school, doing research abroad, and their favorite tabletop role-playing moments.
Okay, I would like to welcome all of our panelists to this presentation today. And I would also like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be here as well. So we have prepared some questions ahead of time for y'all to answer for us, okay? So I'm going to open up this first question to our panelists here. So this question is, how did you decide to pursue an education in a career in STEM?
You go ahead, Casey.
Okay, thanks, Nikita. Right, so by the way, I'm at University of Florida on the unceded lands of the Seminole and Timucua people. So I wanted to do that first. So I was very lucky with the mentors who I had in my high school and undergraduate career, and I think I would attribute a lot of my path to them. They were really, a lot of them were professors who had me in their labs, and what they did was they really advocated for me in terms of like doing all of these projects, helping me explore a lot of my interests, going like, okay, well, why don't you pivot to this thing or that thing if I was having an experience that I didn't really enjoy. So I would say a lot of that is about finding somebody who you can look up to in that way.
Yeah, so my that relates to a lot of where my motivation came from, Casey. So I'm happy that you started off on it. So if I had to break down like my decision in pursuing an academic and professional career in this field, I think it comes from two things. And the first one is related to what Casey said. So just having really good science teachers makes such an impact. I think especially students can agree on that, where when they can sit in a classroom and be interested in the material. And a lot of that I think comes from the teachers and professors that are teaching that subject. I am very lucky and grateful to have had those science teachers whose like passion for their sector of science kind of oozed out of them. And it showed you that like science isn't just this thing that's kind of hidden away in a laboratory that is far off from like the rest of the world, but that it's really a part of our everyday life. And so I think that really showed me that it's a career and academic pursuit worth going for. And another thing I think that these teachers did, the ones that stick in my mind, is that they involved me in the curriculum. And I think that made a huge impact on me personally, because for someone that doesn't come from a background of higher education, it kind of builds your self-efficacy within the field. So that helped me a lot. And I think the second one that I'll touch on briefly is more connected to my BISI identity. And it comes from the fact that like I'm a second generation American, and that my family came to America for a better life, in part for themselves, but also for me. And I think one of the things my family, the way that they saw that happening, as I think many parents do, is through a quality education. And so I didn't take my choice very lightly because of that. And so through those amazing teachers that I had in high school and at MSU, that kind of cultivated that sense of that science was worth pursuing. I think those two things ended up being why I am where I am.
Those are great stories. For me, I think the seed for this was sort of sown when I saw probably Jurassic Park when I was 9 years old. And when I saw this movie, I distinctly remember thinking to myself that wouldn't it be great to have some opportunity to study genetics at some point in my life. And then later in my high school, I developed some experience, a lot of interest in math. And then all those sort of coalesced together because I ended up having two amazing teachers in undergrad who were not only teachers teaching classes, but they were also running labs and doing research. And this is very new, I mean, very rare in India, for example, where there are even in undergraduate education institutions, teachers come there and they're purely instructors, right? But then I happened to be at a place where the two other people were also interested in research. They involved me in the research that they were doing. And it was really, really cool. So I thought, okay, maybe I should try and do more of this.
Thank you, Arjun. So this second question for our panelists is, what advice would you give to Asian Pacific Islander Desi American students who are interested in studying and working in STEM?
So I'll go ahead and say a couple of things that came up when I was thinking about this question. One is, don't be afraid to like ask for help, or especially when looking for opportunities. For me, that was probably the hardest thing, just because, again, I didn't come from a background that had a lot of people in higher education. And so or you didn't see people that looked like you in the positions that you wanted to go and pursue. But I think the best thing that you can do is ask for help and see what opportunities people can help you with, but also get you to the positions that you do want to pursue and engage in. And another thing is like, don't ever feel the need to like not hide away any part of your identity that is meaningful to you. Even if it's not something that people in the groups that you're engaging with may be familiar with. And I think that brings up another thing of being in groups that, support your identity, but don't ever think that like what's meaningful to you and your culture is ever not important in the groups that you are in, because that is just as much of part of your success in your journey and whatever you go in, as anything on the resume is.
Totally. I think I'm just going to second what Nikita said, because the advice I have, it's not specific to this community, but generally, I think it has taken me many, many years to come to this realization that the unique background, training, and life experiences that we have is a huge strength, and not something to, sort of, hide away and then, be part of this major group. And turns out that it is not just a strength in terms of our, personal contributions to our community, but also in the science and the research that we do. Somehow the culture every culture is so unique in terms of instilling, various skills and motivations, and these things become important in working and solving very hard problems, because all of us, I think, totally agree that we need to bring very diverse ideas to the table to solve very hard problems. And therefore that begins with embracing our, life experiences and background. Totally, I think.
I will third everything that Nikita and Arjun said. And also, I think on the subject of finding community and finding others to share your own story with and to learn about theirs, I find that even within like the APITA community, all of us are coming from such different places. So like I was born in the US and my parents have been here since they were teenagers. So my background and story is very different than somebody who was born internationally and then just came here during college and has had like a lot of different life experiences. And I find it so valuable to be learning about all of those things, and really fulfilling to be able to connect with other people in that way. I think the other thing is that my parents used to tell me, like, don't worry, just work hard and keep your nose to the grindstone and everything's going to be okay. And while to some degree, I think that's true, there's a lot of other unwritten rules about academia that you may need to seek out from other people. So it goes back to that asking for help thing. Like, sometimes if you're working hard and you don't kind of advocate for yourself and nobody advocates for you, then your hard work won't be seen. And so I think it's really important to like push forward with that and ask other people to advocate for you when you need that.
I want to thank you three for those very deep responses. So our next question is, what academic or professional work accomplishments are you most proud of?
I can potentially go. So I think my perspective is from someone who's started a research group, right? So when I opened this group, there was some idea about, what will be the culture that we want to have within this group, and which is at the point when nobody has joined the group, right? And we're really hoping that somebody would come and then start. And then now this has spiraled out over the 5 years into a large group of about 10 to 13 people. And I think what I'm really proud of is the fact that these people who have joined this group have literally owned this culture right now. So it is not anything like, me telling them anymore, but then they have really embraced this idea of really a community, of created the small microcosm of a community where they sort of keep each other and then elevate each other. And also they do a really good thing, which is to catch me when I'm not living up to what I wanted to set out to do, or in all the values that we have set for each other. And I really, really appreciate that. And it's amazing that they're all sort of junior in terms of their career stages, but they don't realize this, but they're all way smarter than me. And then it's amazing that I can tap into each one of them in terms of their diverse perspectives, and also learn and sort of do course correction on my own for the whole group and for myself. And I'm very, very proud of this group.
So I'll briefly say three things. So the first one is getting into medical school, and not just because like, yeah, that's a goal, but more about what it means for people that are coming behind me. So I hold mentorship really high in my duty as someone from my background. And so the fact that like I've had many people that are younger than me come and ask me questions, and I've been able to help them, whether that's reading certain things for them or helping them with opportunities, that has meant a lot to me. And I think it shows that when you do have success in whatever way that you are most passionate about, there's someone there behind you that's going to want to learn from you or want to get some advice from you. And so that is probably one of the top things that I'm most proud about. And then the second thing I wanted to mention that's very much connected to this and the conversation that we're having is a research project that I am a part of still. We're still waiting to be published, but we looked at disparities and patients that have limited English proficiency, and to have a paper out about that, especially when it relates so much to my identity and why I'm going into medicine, is something that I'm very proud of. And I think it shows that when you're passionate about something and you're pursuing it, don't be afraid to make it yours and seek out opportunities that allow you to advocate for things that you care about. And there's so many people in every single niche of science that are doing things that you care about. So it was nice to be able to see something that is personable to me be carried out in a scientific manner through research, but also through a advocacy point of view. And I think the last one, and then I promise I'll shut up, is being able to, so I volunteer with an assistance program for insurance. And there's many people that are immigrants, as I was talking to beneficiaries that are looking for insurance, that again, don't really understand the American healthcare system, and to be able to like talk them through it and be able to help sign them up for insurance, again, through a position that I'm in as someone going into the medical field, has been very, very fulfilling. Because again, I think it's all about reaching back to those communities that you want to help elevate and hopefully bring into the conversations. And so I think all three of those has really helped build my goal on helping those that I come from.
So I guess I'm in the middle of my graduate studies, so I feel like right now I'm very much in the, oh gosh, what am I going to do with all of my data? Not the celebration point yet, but some of the early stuff that I've been really excited about is thinking about, like I mentioned in my bio, how art and science fit together. So one thing that I recently did was I made like a scientific poster, which is in the form of a comic. And so it kind of tells the ups and downs of the scientific process rather than focusing on just like, here's the methods and results. And I want to continue that because I think it's really important for kind of how we think about teaching in the future as well, and different ways we can approach this is how to be a scientist, rather than just we expect results, and rather talk about like what the process is behind the research.
Thank you, Casey. So the next question for our panelists is, if you could go back and talk to the person you were as an entering first-year student, what would you tell yourself?
So, and I know Ariel can probably speak to this because I've talked to her a lot about it. But again, it goes back to not having many people in higher education that came before me. So I think, I don't know if anyone else can relate to the great thing of imposter syndrome that settles in when you go into environments that you have never been exposed to in any sort of way. And so I think the one thing that I would tell myself is like, it's okay for insecurities to be there, but don't let them overwhelm you. because we all have insecurities, and it's okay if, you know, they settle in, and you might think you won't be able to accomplish something, but to let it inhibit you from even at least taking that first step is not fair to you and to what you have going for you. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. All of you here, all the students here are more than capable of accomplishing what they want to do in life. And insecurities are gonna be there, but learning to quiet them down and take those steps is a piece of advice I hope that all of you can take away.
Yeah, I definitely second that one, because I think imposter syndrome is rampant within higher academia. I think in terms of what I'd tell myself, it would be to slow down and stop. So I came in kind of thinking I know exactly what I want and I'm going to get here and get here and get here. And I would say, like, kind of slow down and get to know the people around you as your future colleagues and as future and as your future community, because a lot of my experiences in graduate school have been like, there is plenty of times where people are going to ask you to be doing tons of work and you can easily just be focused on all of that. But the most rewarding parts of the experience for me have been the connections I've made with other people, and being able to both talk science and spend other types of time outside of scientific work with them.
I'm definitely just thinking about myself many years back too when I say these two things. Okay, so one is that one piece of advice would be to really take ownership of the experience that one has around, and ownership. And one of the things that it has again taken some time for me to realize is this: ownership does not necessarily mean knowing what to do, but ownership just means seeking out the help and seeking out the right people and building out the community and then going forward, but taking the initiative to do those things. And the second piece of advice that I have for myself many years back is to not to put life on hold, which is that there's going to be so many things to achieve and so many deadlines, and it's one big race, and there is definitely a lot of joy in doing this marathon, but it's also really important to not also lose sight of many other things that are valuable in terms of personal life, personal circles, friendship, and all that stuff, and family. So I think that is a very important lesson that I would tell myself.
Thank you for those lessons, you three. I think they were really, truly genuine, and I really enjoyed listening to those. We're going to move on to our next question here. And this question is, what are topics or opportunities in your field that most excite you or interest you?
Depends on how long I have for this answer. So let me say this briefly. I think the things that are very interesting in my field right now are the intersection of artificial intelligence, biology, medicine, and computing. And this living at this intersection is so exciting right now. The world is exploring this intersection, and we are just lucky to be here.
You guys have heard this already from like my bio and what I've talked about. But just when it comes to, so I want to do primary care. And so when it comes to the, like you said, Arjun, like the intersection for me is advocacy through more political means, and medicine is very exciting because you get to branch out from the traditional doctor or physician role that maybe initially was taught, And you're seeing physicians be a lot more involved in their local communities. And so that's very exciting for me, especially when I think that's, especially at the preventative level and primary care level, is the best way to serve your patients, is to get a little bit more involved in their social lives to make it better outside of the clinical room for them, because they're coming in to the clinical rooms with all those things anyway. So that's probably the most exciting thing for me, is to know that there's so many things that you can do with medicine if you're interested in them.
So I guess as a kind of sort of at the intersections of biology, bioinformatics, genomics and stuff like that, I'm really excited about having access to a lot more DNA data that is spread across the genome, because this allows us to answer a lot of questions about, for instance, what I study, which is trees and adaptation. And hopefully what I'm hoping down the line is that all of this contributes in some way to like understanding how trees are going to be changing within our changing climate. So that's like, you know, what everybody's worried about right now. And I'm hoping that this work contributes in some way to that. The other thing I'm really excited about is that science seems to have taken, or at least academia in my realm has taken kind of a pivot at this point. And it seems like people are a lot more open right now to having conversations about race, gender, and sexuality, and how that feeds into science. And I think the increasing opportunities for people to bring their personal experiences to their work is increasing at this point, which I'm very excited about.
Thank you, Casey. So this is the last prepared question for our panelists. We will have time for some questions from the audience. If you have any questions for our panelists, please type them in the chat and they will be happy to answer them after this question. So the last question for our panelists is, what is the most fulfilling aspect of your academic or career field?
I've probably already mentioned this several times by now, but it's definitely the people. So the labs that I used to be in as a undergraduate, I still go to their lab meetings now. I still check in with old mentors who I'm not working with anymore, because I think that the maintenance of those relationships is what's keeping me like going within the field, what gets me up in the morning.
Exactly the same thing.
Erwan, the question was, what's most fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
So two quick things. One, in my specific role as like a medical student, is just serving patients. And that's so fulfilling day in and day out. Like it's very nice to know that you're a part of making people's lives better. But I think that kind of goes into my second one, because I still do some research in the lab. And I think Arjun, Casey, and I, like, and everyone here that practices science in some way, I think the most fulfilling thing is just like chasing after something related to finding out something new that will be something novel that other people can use, or chasing some form of truth. And I think science, in any way that you practice it, that is something that's underlying, that's a through line of, at least from the people that I've talked to and come across, is that is so fulfilling, and it keeps you coming back to it, and it keeps you addicted towards practicing it in the way that you are, and hopefully discovering and showing people things that you care about, and hopefully it'll matter to them and be implemented in a way that makes the lives around people better.
Now we would like to take some questions from the chat.
Okay, so our very first question that I would like to introduce is from Amy in the audience. She asks, do you feel that being a part of the APIDA community has affected your education, whether in a positive or a negative way? Which I think is a really great question. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for that.
That's actually an interesting question. So if I think about this, I think especially when I talk to high school students here, for example, one of the things they really think very hard about is what are they going to do when they graduate and what major they're going to do. I sort of escaped this because when in India, when I finished undergrad, okay, it was default that I would become an engineer, which means that I would go to engineering college and spend another 5 years. So I almost feel like I had 4 more years to decide what to do with my life than at high school. So that's one thing. And but that also, I think, kind of there is this huge emphasis, at least in the way that I went through school and college, was this heavy emphasis on math and science. And I think that also sort of, shaped my interests quite a bit, I think. And I think that, I mean, for better or worse, I think that definitely happened and had a huge influence.
I will briefly answer kind of both of the sides of that. In a positive way, I think it's really my background has really helped me when it comes to the people. Kind of what Casey was talking about going in with a wider worldview of what makes up people and their backgrounds. And I think that helps a lot with connecting with people, and fostering those individual relationships and making them comfortable within their relationship as well. So the diversity part of it has helped a lot with getting to know people. When it comes to the negative part, I think it kind of goes with what Arjun was talking about. I still get from individuals in medical school like, oh, you're Indian, so you must have a family full of doctors, or are you just here because your family wanted you to be here? And originally when I was coming into undergrad, that affected me because there was a time, and I don't think Ariel knows this, but I was gonna leave science because I was like, maybe I am just here because I am doing this cookie cutter thing. And so it took a minute for me during my freshman year of college to know that I was here for the right reasons. And it doesn't affect me now. But there are going to be some of those stereotypes depending on what identity that you ascribe to that people might bring upon you, but that doesn't mean that that is true about you or the community that you are with. But that was probably, if I think about any negative experience, it was that. That was a good question.
Actually, I have one more thought following what Nikita said. I think this reminded me. So, for example, I think after school, high school, I think because of this engineering and doctor thing, right? There was just one or two choices, one or the other. I definitely had this dream of becoming an animator at some point, and then joining Pixar at some point. I mean, clearly that was not, it was just some thought that I had to entertain just for myself. And it was not an option that I could, for example, discuss with my parents or discuss with others because it was totally an unviable option, right? So this is something that, I remember that I had to sort of, discard.
Arjun, I had the same thing happen to me. It's like, I'm gonna go and do a major in art in college. Like, no, that was not happening. But I think actually because like I come from already like a pretty privileged position of like most people in my family, they're engineers. So like they know STEM, they know how this all goes. And they've all been to college before. It is hard for me though to kind of explain what I do to the rest of my family because they're all kind of on the practical side of things. So like, especially with my grandparents, because they don't really speak English that well, it is very hard for me to explain like, okay, I'm doing this because, you know, there's might be some nebulous future application to it and I just want to pursue the knowledge and stuff like that. That isn't really a thing that kind of clicks with them.
Thank you, Casey. So the next question that I see in the chat is, what are some things that bring joy to your lives?
Giant robots. I love giant robots. I build plastic models in my free time and watch a lot of robot anime. So that's my thing.
I'm happy that question was brought up because I think all of us, no matter what professional level we're at, work-life balance is a thing. It is needed. It's something that we constantly need to remind ourselves of. And so it's just keeping those things that bring you joy is really, really important, and never let that go. I don't know who asked that question. I should look in the chat, but never let that go. When it comes for me, I think just going out with friends and family and making time for them so that you have people that see you in a different light. So, you know, you're that person during the weekdays, and then you get to be with people that know you in a different way and in a more intimate way. And so being with those, it's kind of refreshing. And the second one, which I can't wait for the fall, is MSU football. It's a huge reason why I stayed here because I love them to death. I love Mel Tucker to death. So I'm very happy during the fall.
All right, I want to thank you too for those wonderful responses. So we're going to move on to our third question coming from the chat. Our next question is, did or how did you think about your racial, ethnic, cultural identity in relation to other marginalized peers, classmates, or groups? Which I think is a really good question. Thank you, Jerry.
So I think I'm going to talk about this specifically from academic biology because that's what I know. And in academic biology, our gender parity and also our like racial parity of like Asian representation is quite high. But within that sphere, I think there's still also room to acknowledge that microaggressions still happen, like especially in terms of like of people where English isn't their first language. And then at the same time, that there are plenty of people who are experiencing really extreme forms of marginalization that cause them to be completely excluded from this field in a way that like I haven't felt excluded, for instance. And so I do feel that it is within my power and a part of my responsibility as a part of this community to be on the lookout for that, to be interrogating myself as well, because like as much as I have some identities that are might be like marginalized to some degree, I'm still swimming in this soup of all of these other things like racism, sexism, homophobia. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Dr. Caldwell. When it comes to did I think about it? Yes, 100%. But I think that's because my other peers that were marginalized because of their identities, we had those conversations openly, like a lot and consistently throughout college. And so it was interesting to think about the different ways that we're all being looked at through the eyes of others in a negative way. And it was not in a way that was like we were trying to say one person has it worse than the other, but it was important to at least recognize, because if not in that setting, in that group of us sharing, I don't know if they would have had those conversations elsewhere. And so it was interesting to have those conversations. I do think though, it sometimes, because there are forms of discrimination that I think are a lot more explicit and blatant that some of my friends were going through, that it sometimes made me feel like the microaggressions that people in the Desi community or the Asian Pacific Islander community had didn't seem as serious. I know that sounds really bad, but like it at one point it did make me feel like that. And so I think it was important to also recognize as we matured and in those conversations that those were just as important to recognize and talk about. Again, because if we didn't talk about it, who would have? So yeah.
This is actually a really good question. And I really appreciate the two answers that I heard right now. And so to add to this discussion, I think I want to talk from the point of view of probably, I mean, a mentor of, students and postdocs. And I think one of the things that I have come to shape and believe in is this idea of what mentoring really is in this context. And or rather probably what mentoring should not be. And these are things like, not to do top-down advising or not to passively demonstrate success or not train to patterns and behaviors of the main group or not do gatekeeping, right? I think these are things that I've come to realize as really key factors to completely avoid as a mentor, and then see, okay, how can we, work with folks to essentially figure out, because one of the things that I think just being in this area of computational biology and this intersection of these different disciplines has just also scientifically taught me is that good ideas can come from anywhere and from anyone, really. And I think this also completely translates to how we do science also. And I think as a mentor, I think it has just been important to practice and also continuously remind myself about these facts.
Thank you, Arjun. So this a question specifically for Arjun. Could you tell us more about the intersections you mentioned between AI, biology, and medicine?
Oh, yes. So one of the cool things that is happening right now is that I think all of us know, I'm going to say some obvious facts that, for example, when we go to the doctor's clinic right now, we essentially fill out a form that we write on paper, and then we're going to get some blood tests and various other tests. That now, if we just look into the near future, in about 5 to 10 years, what's going to happen is that for every single person, we're going to amass a massive amounts of genetic, molecular, and phenotypic data about every single person. And what absolutely needs to happen is this realization that these many decisions about human health and human disease risk are extremely complex and have thousands of factors that are related. And there are some things that machines are very good at and some things that humans are very good at. In terms, machines are very good at digesting all of these and then finding signals and patterns in this data. And then humans are then good at digesting this and making some really non-obvious connections. And then the whole field is going towards this point about how do we make the best of human abilities and machine abilities to better human health and human well-being. And this is the space. This space is ripe for contributions from people who study data, computing, algorithms, and also people who deal with individual patients, but also a major contribution needs to happen from people who understand ethics and biases. And I think all of us need to come together, and then it's going to impact all our lives very, very soon. So that's what I was thinking about in terms of this intersection.
Thank you, Arjun. That was really interesting to hear from you. I really liked your part with the ethics part. As someone who has a background in medical philosophy, I definitely agree that there may be some minor issues with that in the future, and that's where ethics will come in, the humanities and medicine comes in. So our fourth question, it looks like we have time for one more, is from Dr. Vasiliu. Dr. Vasiliou asks, was/is the environment at Michigan State University / College of Natural Science welcoming/inclusive enough for APITA people? And do y'all have any suggestions for the improvement and the progression of this great college at Michigan State?
Yeah, I'm not sure I should even answer this question because as the child of my my friend who's also a assistant professor says that whenever you two get together, you just talk about grants. So yeah.
I think this is a hard question for me to answer as well, just because like as an undergraduate, I did feel very welcome at MSU. That said, my positionality is that like I grew up here in the States and I came from like a place where I was really comfortable with higher ed. So obviously from that kind of perspective, like it does seem hard to pinpoint specific places where I'd say, I think that these are the things that should be tweaked. That said, I might have to think about that one a little more. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Casey. I think when it comes to my experience at MSU, so much of it was made positive through the Drew program, because you had a community of individuals that had a motivation behind it to accept diversity and accept people and for who they are and want to learn about them and interact with each other in ways that I don't know if the wider NatSci community has the opportunity to, at least intentionally or done by someone else for them so that they can help facilitate those relationships. And so mine was very positive because of Drew's influence on building those relationships to foster a sense of accepting diversity. That's a good question.
Yeah, I've been a part of like some organizing of mixers in the past where APITA community members in botany have talked about their experiences. And I feel like a lot of them talk about, or at the time we all talked about not wanting to be flattened into one single experience and like feeling a little bit like you've been boxed in when you want to associate with other APITA people because like it's like, oh, all of the Asians are sitting in the corner, but it's really just about like finding a little piece of home among everybody. And so I guess I can say keeping an eye out for that sort of thing and fostering those senses of community might be helpful.
I wanted to thank you so much to our panelists for sharing your experiences with us tonight. Really appreciated your stories and your personal stories that you shared and the advice that you shared and the feedback that you gave for our students. And to wrap it up, I guess I just want to ask if there's one last piece of advice that you would like to give to our current NatSci students from each of you.
You are not defined by your work output or just your job accomplishments. You are a whole person and deserve to be happy and fulfilled in what you do.
I totally second that.
I'm gonna cheat and do two. I'm sorry. One is don't forget like who you are. Don't let anyone like redefine who you are. Because what you are is gonna bring just as much to the table as well. It's not gonna bring any more to the table than if you were to be someone else that you're not comfortable being. So stay true to who you are. And then my second one just goes back to what I said before, is that each and every one of you is more than capable than you think you are. And you guys have it in you to accomplish whatever you desire in life.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. This is our last Amplify NatSci for the academic year. We're so pleased you could be with us. Thank you so much to our moderators, and thank you so much to our panelists for a really awesome experience tonight. And have a good night, everyone.